All right, I don't have to sit alone this time.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, you just
Old
done a good
friends.
job. You better explain this. Okay, so you are actually old friends.
It's
Yeah.
crazy to meet again in Portugal. Garrett was at the Pro Bowl with me and doing an appearance with the big waves there. And he goes, I might have to leave because this guy's going to fly me to Portugal. There's bigger waves there. And it ended up the place you got engaged is where you caught the 100-foot wave.
Yeah, it was pretty nice to get your email, and thank you for inviting me on here.
Paige, can we start with you? Because this is about branding of individuals and comparing and contrasting with how companies do it. I think it's probably better if we just talk about how individuals do it, because that's kind of the bit that people might be able to learn from. When did you appreciate first that you're not just a fighter in the UFC, but that you're actually an individual entity, your own business, your own company, and your own brand?
Yeah, actually it took me a while to realize that I was my own brand, that I was my own image. It wasn't until after my first UFC fight where I picked up some really big endorsement deals. And then I realized, wow, I'm representing these big companies. My image matters, and everything that I do outside of fighting is still a part of who I am. So that's when I realized I needed to, fall into who I am and create an image for myself and a brand. And then it created a lot of success for me outside of the octagon as well.
How do you go about that? How do you actually go about deciding which aspects of your character you want to bring to the fore, which ones you don't? How the communications change?
Yeah, I think it's a lot about putting your best self forward, and that's what I did. Is I share a lot of my talents outside of just being a professional fighter. I get to share that I'm so much more than just a girl who goes in and fights in a cage. I can do so many other talents, and since then I was able to compete on Dancing with the Stars because I started posting dance videos. So then I got on that show, and then I put out a book this year. So it's all about showing that you're so much more than the one industry that you're molded in, that you can do so many other talents. And I feel like that's why I do pick up big endorsement deals and why I've been so successful within the UFC.
Did you get advice from somebody who knew what they were doing? Did you figure this out on your own? What was that process?
I kind of figured it out on my own. I also have very good parents, so they kind of guided me along the way. I got signed to the UFC when I was 19 years old, so I still needed a mentor, but I was so new in the industry, I didn't really know what I was doing. So I think it's just about having a good head on your shoulders and being an intelligent person and knowing what brands would want to partner with you and what kind of image you need to put forward to, be a good representation of not only yourself, but anybody who's backing you.
Garrett, what's your story? When do you become somebody other than a surfer? Or when do you realize that your ability to generate revenue and a brand is something that you need to work on? And
I started out in Hawaii, and I barely graduated, so I was very childlike. I was very childlike and very innocent, and all I thought I had to do was get a picture in the magazine for my sponsor, and that's kind of all we had to do. But then at about, I think 35, I just won the Jaws Towing World Cup, and this guy approached me to help manage me, and he was senior vice president of Time Warner in marketing and production, and he just retired and moved to Hawaii, and I was just like looking at this guy like he's God, and he was more of a pressure sales guy. He was just old school, but he, got to put your name on the pictures. You got to brand yourself. I'm like, no, we don't put our name anywhere. I don't even want my face anywhere. Just a wet picture of me from far, and that's it. And pushed these things down my throat that I was like, no. But he did. I hung out with him for 3 years, and he just pounded into me everything that he knew and how to market yourself and how to brand yourself and how to make things happen. And it was very, very fortunate because once I got to Portugal, I had learned all that. Coming to Portugal, I say, is lucky, super lucky. But luck is when preparation meets opportunity, but you have to seize the opportunity. And I was so lucky that he had taught me everything before I got here.
so initially you were a little bit reluctant. You didn't want to be, because it's not particularly. It's not the spirit of surfing to push yourself forward. The spirit is you want to catch the wave and be one with the wave. And you're like, actually, now I have to be a business. So once you made that transition, that's when you were ready.
Yes. Yeah, I was. It was tough because it's my love, my passion, and then all of a sudden it's your job, and you have to weigh out passion and career, and then you learn all this information, and you're stuck in your head trying to monetize it. My goal was keep surfing. How do I keep surfing? I got to pay the bills and travel around the world. And yeah, I was ready after meeting Lowell.
David, your story is remarkable. Just chatting to you backstage, you've had several different lives and iterations. And how do you describe yourself now?
Oh, I describe myself now as a CEO that goes around the world helping people because my main purpose is charitable. But I started as a technology guy running Samsung's first phone division, and then moving to Leigh Steinberg, who most people know from the movie Jerry Maguire. So I always represented someone else: Steve Young, Warren Moon, Sabathia Ramirez, Lennox Lewis, Evander Holyfield. And when the internet and social branding started coming out, I started realizing, gosh, instead of elevating everyone else as a brand, I could actually be a brand. And so Gary Vaynerchuk asked me to consult to start his sports agency, and I was smart enough to ask for a mentor. I said, hey man, can you brand me, for what I do? And he said, if you have good content. And so I created something called the stage theory, which was if you capture your content, whatever your frequency is, and amplify it correctly, and then it becomes a perpetual asset for you. And years can go by, so I literally hired one guy with one camera, just like Gary told me to do, and started following me around with the book tour, the speaking, the business coaching, and the representation that I do. And I'm around cool people and cool places. And all of a sudden, I went from 200 followers last November to millions that watch my podcast, millions that watch my TV show. And I think I have 200,000 people engaged on my Instagram. And it just blows my mind that a pudgy middle-aged guy can gain interest from people.
So explain why that happened. So I understand the point about frequency, but if you've got frequency and the content isn't good enough, then it doesn't really matter. So you're obviously creating something that people want to see.
Yeah. And
what do you credit it to?
I think being around guys and women like you and understanding a higher level of awareness that there's a humility that you hear and see with both of you, where I've always been on the other side of it, like your Time Warner guy, going, oh my God, they're missing the boat. Don't they know what they have? And
that's exactly what he said.
Yeah, of course.
You should be getting paid so much more money. What's going on?
Oh my gosh, I say the same thing today about Ninja. Like, I can't believe Ninja makes $5 million. I'm like, give me that kid. I'll make $50 million like this. And so I started looking at myself, because Gary did the same thing. Like, Dave, look at your history. Look at your story. I love your book. Just be you and help people. And the only thing I won't do, which most athletes don't want to do, is I don't want to sell anything. Right? You may represent somebody else's brand, but people ask for my book. I pay for shipping. Like, I won't sell, but the universe, I'm a very spiritual person. It just brings more and more attention to what I'm doing because I'm not trying to sell anything.
So you work with brands, but you won't.
Don't sell anything. So
it's so tough, right?
Yeah, very tough, but I won't.
No, tough to actually sell things. Like, nah.
Oh, the people on stage, it drives me crazy. You give this inspirational speech, and they're like, well, thank you so much. Buy my book at the back of the room,
Yeah.
or $5,000 coaching program. Literally won't do it. But the brands, they like the fact that, I have BlackBerry, Veridesk, all these different deals where they're just incorporated in my office and part of what's going on, but you'll never hear me say, oh, this is the best desk ever. Whether they like it or not, I give awareness to things.
They jump on your program strictly.
Yeah.
You, and that's it.
Yeah.
Paige, what's next for you? How do you keep the amplification going? Because obviously, fighting is a career that can last for a specific amount of time, but at the end of that, you obviously have to plan for an exit.
No, I definitely do. I had a injury. My last fight was like 10 months ago, and I broke my arm and had to have multiple surgeries to try to fix it. But I do know that the fighting career is short-lived, but I also know that's where my passion lies. I try to build my brand in a way that I will be successful outside of fighting because of who I am. And I think that's a big part of making yourself very unique and making yourself something that somebody wants to be a part of.
Yeah.
Making yourself a brand and making that so people really want to see you succeed in absolutely any avenue.
And when David's talking about that authenticity, that's obviously something that has carried you to where you are now.
Exactly, and I think that's the thing that resonated with a lot of the brands that I partner with, is because I am absolutely 100% who I am, and that's what makes me unique within the world of professional fighting. So of course I'm going to be fighting for the next, I'm still young. I plan on having a very extensive fighting career, but I do know that I need to build my brand outside of it because, being a professional athlete, anything can happen and you want to have things set up outside of that.
How about a world exclusive here? Stephanie McMahon was backstage a little bit earlier on. Obviously, we've seen Ronda Rousey make her transition from UFC to WWE. Is this something on the cards for you, perhaps?
Yes, I'm trying to get a meeting with her. So
You got one, I think.
I know she's here.
I think you got one. They just pushed our back. I think you have it.
Yes. So
There you go, folks.
I would absolutely love, to make that transition because, I was on Dancing with the Stars, and obviously I'm super passionate about being able to dress up and show off my girly side. I love wearing dresses and heels, but at the same time, I'm still a professional fighter as well, and I think that, the WWE has an amazing platform for somebody like me.
It's the law of the universe. This is, it's all coming back.
It's awesome. Yeah, I saw her backstage. So
You must get loads of people coming up to you and asking for advice in situations like at different stages in their careers. Obviously, Paige has got a stratospherically successful career, so probably doesn't need too much help and management. But for small companies, for startups, for organizations who are trying to grow and trying to hack it a little bit, what do you generally tell them?
Definitely it's experimentation. I see too many companies out there spending money recklessly because people are making promises that they can't keep. Everybody should start small. Find your own story and then post and see what resonates with people. Then spend a little bit of money on that branding, a little bit more in the advertising sense. I see too many people that just put a budget together and they're made promises and they're oversold or back-end sold, and it's too late. And many companies today are going broke because they're believing in something that doesn't exist. And that's someone that truly, and Gary will tell you this, who I think's the king of this industry. I don't know what we're doing. We're still experimenting, right? It's all trial and error. I do want to say one thing. These two and every other athlete, most people don't know, I've been around them my whole life as an agent. Not only do they sacrifice their lives and put them at jeopardy, but they do most of the things they do for other people. And I know we have all this negative stuff about athletes. Both of these people who I know well, they volunteer, they do so much for charity. So when you look at these athletes and look at their brand, realize that 99% of them are extraordinary because they give back in their service, and they're extremely brave and athletic.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate
Yeah,
both of them.
absolutely. You can give that a round of applause. Yeah. Two good questions coming from the crowd. If anybody else has any more questions, you can ask through the app. How important is social media, Instagram, Twitter, etc., in branding yourself? Garrett, I'm interested in how you get your content to your audience, because obviously people aren't watching you surf the waves in person. That has to be captured and transmitted around the world. Who do you trust to make that content for you, and how do you distribute it?
It's actually pretty challenging. I mean, you got your iPhone and you can get the day-to-day. In a perfect world, I'd have a team with me, at least one, if not two people at all times. But I have a wife and children. My wife doesn't really want somebody sitting there the whole time. If he was helping with the baby, and if there's anybody who wants to be a nanny and a photographer and Instagrammer, please contact me. But then the surfing, you got the GoPros are amazing. I've gotten to a point where I really love letting people do their job, and because they can do it better than me. I might capture the content, but then I'll get it to them.
Yeah.
I don't sitting on the computer. I get more fun in the water and not as much stress as sitting on the computer, and all of a sudden I get a stiff neck from trying to edit a video.
But you must have done that for a while. That's part of your
Or
history.
dangerous in surfing.
Yeah, computer neck or iPhone neck. But capturing it and distributing it, the social media is just so amazing. As long as I don't like to just put garbage out. And I used to, have a metrics that I would use to get followers and posting viral stuff that I find and stuff that I'm interested in to share with everybody. But now I'd like to spread my fan base is big enough to where I really just want to focus on getting good messages out and meaningful. If there's no purpose, no reason, it's a waste of time for what? I'm done beating my chest. It's just Instagram and Facebook, and I'm going to start working on YouTube a little more because our content's so fun and interesting and engaging. But I'm sure you got some advice with that. Well, I mean, you had your cameraman. I was hearing you say it. I was like, I had that guy my whole life.
That's what my marital relationship is. My wife and 4 kids telling me, turn that off. Although I will tell you how powerful social media is. I came home after all the people I've represented and things I've done. My 14-year-old said, "Oh my God, Dad, you're famous." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" They said, "You have a blue check next to your name." I had no idea even what that meant, right?
I just found out.
Then I found out I'm verified. So, but understanding, I believe in mentorship, and what's one of the best pieces of advice I can give everyone is, find a mentor with exactly the situational knowledge that you want. So I have a certain specialty in situational knowledge. Gary has his. My camera guys have theirs. And I think that as we get older, it's really difficult to be humble enough to say, I'm really good at what I do, but this stuff is new. And some of my mentors are 19 years old.
And that makes sense. But it totally does. Like, you're obviously a whiz on Instagram, I think, is your biggest platform?
Yeah, Instagram is definitely my biggest platform. It's the one that I've been the easiest to kind of handle on my own. And even then, for content, I do as much as I can and try to engage with my audience as much as I can. But it is very hard to keep up, and especially to meet that demand to continuously build my brand. What I do is sometimes I'll Google myself, and then I can always find a good picture of me on Google, and then I'll use that and share what happened. So it's all about using all of those, references and every little piece that you can to help share your life. And, and it's a huge platform for monetization as well. That's almost brands or endorsement companies who reach out to me, they want to see what my engagement is, how many millions of people visit my page every single day, and that's how you can actually negotiate contracts.
And so are you looking after all of that yourself?
I of course have a team. Those are things, I manage my Instagram by myself because I feel like it is a representation of who I am, and I like to put my best self forward, and I don't want to put that in anyone else, put that pressure on anybody else. So I know the things that I want to say and the things that I want to put forward. But of course I have a team behind me who tells me, working with the endorsement companies, and then they just tell me what I need to do, and we communicate from there.
And is it difficult, because obviously the UFC contracts have traditionally been very strongly written in favor of the UFC, so you're not very free around fights to produce as much content as maybe you would like?
Definitely. A lot of the content is, copyrighted. There's a lot of stuff from within the UFC that they own the rights to that I can't share. But, luckily I work on such a big platform. All of our fights are televised. All of my fights will be on TV. I still get to get those views and that recognition. And the UFC is very, very good about building athletes and building brands within us. So they support us so well, and they help push us and guide us, because ultimately the more successful we are, the more successful and attention there's going to be on the UFC.
The point about not just sharing content for virality anymore, is that something that maybe you would have done at the start as well, and have learned that it's the stuff that is actually about you and is meaningful to you that resonates the most?
100%. I feel like I have a brand, and I was put in, my position to share my story. I don't feel I was just put in the UFC to fight. I feel like I have a much bigger purpose than that, and that's what I try to share on my social media. I try to share my entire journey. I like to share my whole being, my whole past, my future, and everything that's going on in my life. And I think that's what people really resonate with, is because they can see the real me, and that's what they're seeing on social media. And I feel like that's where I do have such strong fans, because they really get to know who I am.
Yeah, David, that's a massive sea change in how athletes would have been very protective of their brands, so that less and less of that information and their privacy in the past would have been shared. That got flipped at some point in the near past, and now definitely people like seeing what's going on. They like to know what the breakfast is. They like to know what the workout is.
Yeah, people buy on emotions for logical reasons. And what happens is, unless they can connect emotionally to athletes or to you, they're not going to be engaged. And instead of, you can have a surface following, post cool pictures because, you're a Kardashian and here's my look. But if you truly want to have a following, people that will, move you, you need to connect emotionally, and then they'll have the logical reasons why. But the most important thing, I think, to remember is, if you connect emotionally with your clients as a business or an athlete, you can empower them to empower others. And that's where your business thrives and your brand thrives. It lives forever once you get that capture. Kardashians don't have that. They literally could drop millions of people because they don't have the emotional connection to it.
That's interesting. So how do you get it?
Paige said it best. Be yourself. Right? There's 4 billion people on the internet. There has to be millions. A tiny percentage follow Paige, Garrett, and I. There has to be a certain percentage that are going to be moved by you. Only you. And don't try to be someone else. Just be you and let that frequency grow, and you'll get a bigger and bigger following no matter who you are or what company you are.
I think that's great advice for companies as well. We're nearly out of time. Two quick fire questions for you all. How do you deal with the constant negativity on social media? Garrett, do you get much negativity on social media? Do you drown it out?
I'm so lucky. Like 99.9 is just positive. It's really beautiful, really amazing. So much love and so much support, and I try to share.
Surfers. Everybody loves surfers. Watch the fighter. Watch what she says.
I have a lot of negativity online. People can be really mean.
You should switch followers for a day and see what it's like.
Oh gosh. So I have learned not to read my comments all the time unless I'm in a really good mood. And then, you just have to have really thick skin. And it is hard to differentiate between, I'll get, 100 mean comments, but I'll get like 10,000 really nice ones. But for whatever reason, I just focus on the really, really negative ones. It's so hard to look past that. But again, you have to be yourself and understand that not everybody loves you.
Got to take the lions don't care what lambs think.
I asked them to call me. I literally asked them, say, I appreciate your opinion. Give me a call because I'd like to figure out your perspective. 99% will never call. I'll put my cell phone right there. And the one that does apologizes. I was in a bad mood. It's one way to deal with it.
That's really good. Very quickly, last one for you, Paige. What's your opinion on Conor McGregor's tactic around self-branding and promotion?
I think he's a genius. He did absolutely everything he needed to do to be the richest man in MMA. And it absolutely doesn't matter if that's a facade. If you believe it's a facade or if you believe it's his real self, he's a genius the way he's branded himself.
All right, on that note, we've gone a little bit over time. My thanks to David, to Garrett, and to Paige. That was great. Thanks very much, folks. Good stuff. Brilliant.